In a distant village, hidden among the mountains and dark forests, its inhabitants lived in constant fear of the legendary fire dragon that visited them every year. The dragon was enormous, its wings covering the sky and its eyes glowing with an unquenchable flame. With the approach of the dry season, it would flap its heavy wings in the village's sky, demanding its usual tribute. A terrifying tradition had taken root among the villagers for 100 years. The village had to offer the most beautiful girl who had turned 18 as a sacrifice to avoid boundless destruction. The dragon would burn everything in its path if the villagers did not appease it with the tribute. Houses and crops would ignite under its flames. Each time, it would lift the chosen girl with its massive claws and soar away, leaving behind a chilling silence and a year of safety. The selection of the girl was not random. It was the great sorcerer, the true ruler of the village, who made the decision. His magical power surpassed that of any king, for he controlled the entire kingdom, with its kings merely puppets under his spell. His choices always sparked fear and confusion, as if he knew something that others did not. In that year, Elia, the beautiful girl who grew up on the outskirts of the village, was chosen. She was known for her long black hair and her strong will, but like everyone else, she lived under the shadow of constant fear. Elia lived alone with her elderly father, and everyone knew that her striking beauty would make her the next sacrifice. On the night before the dragon's arrival, the sky was filled with heavy black clouds, as if predicting an impending calamity. The Grand Wizard, sitting in his high tower, watched the village from afar with eyes full of mystery. He knew this year was different. There was a hidden force moving in the darkness, greater than the dragon itself. This might be the last year a sacrifice would be given. Elia sat by the hearth, preparing breakfast as usual. She did not know that this day would change her life forever. The calm fire danced before her, and the cool morning breeze gently caressed her face while she pondered what might come after this day. Suddenly, the quiet morning was disrupted by the ominous sound of a horn. It was the dreaded sound that signaled the gathering of the villagers to select the dragon's bride. Her heart raced, and she felt a wave of dread overwhelm her, as if her heartbeat was striking the rhythm of the end. Everyone knew that the dragon could only see the color red, which was why the chosen bride wore a bright red wedding dress to attract the dragon's gaze. As the villagers gathered in the large square, fear dominated everyone's expressions. With hesitant steps, Elia left her home and headed toward the square, where she saw the Grand Wizard standing beside the king, dressed in a long black cloak. His eyes gleamed with mystery, as if hiding a secret about this day. All eyes turned toward her, and whispers filled the air. Everyone knew that this time, Elia would be chosen. The wise old woman approached Elia, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She trembled as she held the red dress in her hands. With slow and somber motions, she dressed the unfortunate girl in the wedding gown that would make her the dragon's sacrifice. The dress glowed with its vivid color under the dim daylight, seeming to foretell a sorrowful fate. Despite her many years and wisdom, the old woman couldn't hide the profound sadness that enveloped her as she saw Elia's beauty, which should have been a blessing, turn into a cruel curse. "What a pity," she muttered in a trembling voice. Her beauty was like a curse upon her. No one deserves this fate. Elia, despite the fear creeping into her heart like a cold blade, tried to remain steadfast before the old woman and her fellow villagers. She didn't want them to see the terror that gripped her. She wanted to be a symbol of sacrifice and strength, a girl who accepted her fate for the safety of her village's weak. "I ask you to take care of my old father," Elia said in a calm tone, laden with emotion. The wise old woman nodded silently, her wrinkled face displaying evident sorrow. She patted Elia's shoulder with maternal tenderness, trying to offer her some comfort. although it was impossible in these moments. When the awaited moment came, Elia stood in the midst of the square, surrounded by her villagers who looked at her with admiration and fear. Despite the terror raging within her, she raised her head with courage. "I will sacrifice for your safety," she muttered to herself as she awaited the dragon's arrival, hoping that the next year would be free from destruction and pain. Elia stood on the riverbank, tall and resilient, the cold air whipping her face as her black hair fluttered in the wind. Her heart pounded fiercely, but she did not show her fear. She lifted her head to the dark sky, waiting for the inevitable fate. The night was eerily quiet, as if nature itself was anticipating the awaited event. Suddenly, the silence was torn by a deep sound resembling the roar of fire. A massive fiery halo appeared in the sky, coloring the horizon with red and orange flames. The fire dragon had arrived. With enormous flaming wings and glowing eyes of malice, it approached the village, leading the fires of wrath across the night sky. Its roar echoed in the mountains, and the villagers quickly hid behind their crumbling walls, unable to gaze directly at the terrifying scene. Elia remained still, staring at the sky as the dragon neared her with unimaginable speed. In an instant, before she could take a deep breath, the dragon had landed nearby, its enormous body and scorching gaze enveloping her. Seeing her in the radiant red dress, it swiftly gripped her in its massive claws. In the blink of an eye, it rose high into the sky with her. The villagers' screams faded into the background as Elia ascended with the dragon toward the blazing horizon. They all stood helpless, lamenting her bleak fate and grateful for her sacrifice that once again saved them from the dragon's wrath. Some whispered prayers, and others shed tears, but Elia could no longer hear them. As she ascended far into the sky, leaving behind her village, her life, and everything she had ever known. At the highest peak of the Kingdom of Darkness Mountains, a majestic palace shrouded in mystery and eerie beauty appeared before Elia. Its walls were glossy black with intricate golden details and towering spires that reached into the dark sky. The palace was grand and massive, but bore an ominous dread that sent shivers through Elia's veins. Despite her courage, she felt a cold rush through her blood, for this place was surrounded by secrets unknown to anyone, neither she nor her villagers. They merely made up stories about the fate of the girls who were taken, most of them products of their imagination, as none had ever returned to tell the truth. The fiery dragon landed on the palace's rooftop, its massive claws making a dull thud on the cold stone. It gently placed Elia down with an unexpected tenderness, considering its enormous size and destructive power. She looked around in amazement, trying to comprehend what was happening. As the dragon approached her, she felt its heat and began to tremble with fear, for the sight exceeded all her expectations. The dragon extended its head toward her, gently touching her long black hair with its massive claws. It seemed as if it was studying her, or perhaps verifying something mysterious. With each passing moment, her heart pounded harder, fearing this might be the end of the road. But instead of harming her, the dragon exhaled powerfully and breathed a light flame into the air before soaring into the sky with lightning speed. Elia stood there, stunned by what had transpired. She found herself alone on the rooftop of a massive palace, far from everything familiar, with no idea what would happen next. Was this just the beginning? Suddenly, Elia heard a whispering voice coming from the stairway leading into the palace. She felt an inexplicable pull toward the source and approached cautiously. When she reached the stairway, she was surprised to see a beautiful girl, appearing to be in her early 20s, wearing a long white dress that cast an aura of mystery around her. "Who are you?" Elia asked, her voice filled with astonishment. The girl smiled serenely and replied, I am the girl who was offered as a sacrifice 2 years ago. Elia stared at her in disbelief. But how can you still be alive? We thought the dragon devoured you all? The girl shook her head and said, No, the dragon doesn't eat us as we believed. All the girls who were offered as sacrifices are here in this palace. We live and work here. Some have simply died from old age. Confounded, Elia asked in a trembling voice, But why does the dragon bring us here and keep us captive? I don't understand. What's the purpose of this? The girl looked at the ground and shrugged helplessly. No one knows. We were never told, and the dragon doesn't speak to us. We live here waiting for whatever may come, with no explanation. She then pointed to a dark corridor leading into the palace and said, Come, I'll take you to your room. We've prepared it for you, as we knew a new girl would arrive tonight. As Elia followed the girl, a blend of fear and bewilderment swirled within her. All the questions she thought had answers now felt shrouded in even greater mystery. Elia found herself sitting among the other girls who gathered around her, each filled with curiosity. They began asking her about news from the village, their families, and all that had happened since their departure. The girls were delighted by her arrival, as she was the only link between them and the outside world they had been deprived of for years. Despite the heavy sorrow weighing on Elia's heart, she tried to answer their questions, hoping to give them some sense of hope, or at least something they could talk about. Suddenly, the quiet atmosphere was shattered by a loud, terrifying sound coming from the roof. It was a savage roar that shook the entire castle, as if the walls themselves were trembling. The girls were instantly gripped by fear, their faces pale and their bodies trembling. Some fell into a state of panic, unable to control their fright. The roar was akin to that of a dragon, but this time it was more furious, as if something had provoked it. The girls tried to stifle their voices, fearing to incite more anger. With wide eyes of terror, the girl Ilya first met whispered, Be quiet, please. We need to stay calm, or the dragon's anger might grow. Ilya looked around, astonished by the fear that controlled the girls. Despite her heart pounding fiercely, she tried to keep her composure, telling herself that this was not a moment for panic. Suddenly, the grand door of the hall opened with a thunderous sound, and the dragon entered with heavy steps that shook the ground. Its breath was scorching, and the heat increased with each step it took closer. The girls knelt in fear and terror, heads bowed and bodies trembling, as if trying to disappear under its dominance. The dragon began to walk slowly through the hall, its glowing eyes sweeping the place as if searching for something. It passed by the girls one by one, but they remained in a state of complete stillness, fearing that any movement might catch its attention. Suddenly, the dragon stopped completely in front of Ilya. She felt her heart nearly stop from fear as she looked at it, unable to move. It approached her with heavy steps, its eyes intensely focused on her. Her breathing halted, waiting to see what it would do. Then, in a surprising moment, the dragon gently brushed her long black hair with its large claws. Its touch was unexpectedly soft, strangely gentle, not matching its enormous size and fearful presence. Ilya stood stunned, not knowing how to react. But the dragon showed no aggression. It seemed to be examining her once more, as if searching for something mysterious that no one could comprehend. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a voice emanating from the gate, an eerie old voice that echoed years of secrets and deceit. The words reverberated through the hall. It is her, my Lord Dragon. She is the girl we've been searching for over 100 years. Elia froze in place, and the hearts of the girls around her beat faster. The old man continued, his voice seeping into the depths of their fear. She carries in her veins the legendary blood we seek. I smelled it from the depths of the cellar. The dragon turned towards the old man, as if his words had stirred something deep inside him. The silence that followed those words was heavy, as if the air itself had frozen. Elia looked with wide eyes at the old man, who seemed to know more than he revealed. At that moment, she realized that her fate was not just another sacrifice to the dragon, but that there was a larger plan, an ancient secret that transcended time, and that she was at the center of this dark mystery. Elia suddenly understood that all the girls who had been offered as sacrifices before her were mere victims in a quest to find her. All those years, all those lives lost, were just a means to find the girl carrying the legendary blood the old man spoke of. Elia shuddered as the truth began to sink into her consciousness. She was not just an ordinary girl being offered to the dragon. She was the true target. The previous girls were just steps in a bigger scheme, sacrifices made to reach the moment when the dragon would stand before her. The other girls looked at Elia with eyes filled with amazement and fear, as if they now understood that they had been mere pawns in a game they did not comprehend. They had not known that their fates were tied to the fate of one girl, and that their lives were part of a deeper puzzle. Elia felt the weight of responsibility and dread. She knew now that her destiny and the fate of the entire castle could change forever. But she still did not know what awaited her or what the legendary blood the old man spoke of truly meant. Suddenly, the old man grasped Elia's hand firmly and inserted a sharp needle into her skin. A few drops of her blood flowed, and the pain was quick and strong, but Elia could only remain silent. Then the old man wiped the blood on a part of the dragon's body. Instantly, the fiery dragon trembled, its body shaking as if it had been struck by an earthquake. The force of the tremor shook the entire palace, as if the dragon itself was writhing in deep pain. The girls around Elia became more frightened, watching the chaos unfold before their eyes. The old man looked at the dragon and said with a voice full of confidence, "Yes, I was sure she had the fabled blood. Congratulations, my lord." Then he added in a serious tone, "However, the fundamental condition to break the curse is that she must consent to marry you and love you. Only then will you be able to use her blood." Elia froze in place, quickly overwhelmed by the horror of this revelation. Marrying the dragon was not just an option. It was the key to unlocking the power of her legendary blood. The dragon took a deep breath, as if the old man's words were a signal for him to proceed with his plan. As the old man spoke, everyone felt the weight of the moment. Elia's fate was now directly tied to her willingness to marry, a decision that she knew would have unpredictable consequences. The dragon looked at Elia with his fiery eyes, as if assessing her courage or contemplating her defiance. His eyes sparkled like burning embers, reflecting the anger and awe emanating from him. The old man responded seriously, "We will prepare for the marriage of the fiery dragon to the girl with the fabled blood." At that moment, Elia cried out with a voice full of defiance, "I will not agree until my condition is met." There was an unexpected boldness in her tone that shocked the remaining girls with her strength and courage. The old man asked curiously, "And what is your condition?" Elia raised her head firmly and answered, "The freedom of all the girls in the palace. If I am the goal, I see no need for them to remain here. They must be free." The old man was silent for a moment, and the girls looked at him expectantly, hoping that Elia's condition would be met. The dragon breathed deeply, his eyes shining with focus as he looked at Elia, knowing that every word spoken was part of a fateful decision. Finally, the old man said in a low voice, "We shall see. If this is what you ask, we will work on it. But remember, there is a price for everything, and the decision is not as simple as you might think." Elia felt a partial relief, but at the same time, she knew that the road ahead was still filled with challenges. She hoped that the old man's word would hold true and that she would succeed in freeing the girls from their dark fate. With a glance from the dragon, the old man added, "Very well. From this moment on, All the girls are free and may leave the palace and return to their families. The emotions of the girls around Elia surged. Their eyes filled with tears, and the hall resonated with deep breaths of joy and relief. The girls began to rise, exchanging hugs and tears, as if they had finally broken free from their chains. Elia looked at the old man with gratitude, her eyes brimming with hope, while the dragon regarded her coldly, as if accepting the situation as it was. It was clear that the old man's decision had the dragon's approval, granting her a new opportunity. Elia smiled faintly, her heart folding with joy mixed with anxiety. As the girls exited the palace, the dragon began to watch closely, knowing that there were more steps ahead in the marriage plan and the spell he had long awaited. Remember, marriage is the next step. Only then will you be able to prove the worth of your legendary blood, the old man said in an undeniable tone. As the dragon approached Elia, he gently picked her up and flew her to an unknown location. Elia felt something unusual stirring within her, as the dragon's touch evoked emotions she had never experienced before. She couldn't comprehend what was happening. She found herself in a massive and quiet room, her feelings oscillating between terror and admiration. Suddenly, the dragon began to change in a frightening manner. His features contorted into expressions of extreme pain, and his body convulsed as if he were undergoing deep agony. The powerful screams filled the room, causing Elia's heart to ache at the sight of such suffering. She felt as though every scream passed through her body, accumulating pain deep within her. Then, in a sudden turn, the dragon began to transform into a human form. Elia stood stunned, as she had never seen such a handsome man in her life. The upper half of his body was bare, while he still suffered from the pains of transformation. Elia quickly covered his body with her cloak, her emotions torn between fear and tenderness. She could not believe what she was seeing. She was touching a reality that seemed like a fairy tale, discovering now a handsome young man who was the very dragon that had terrified her. The transformation was painful for him, and her emotions wavered between confusion and a desire to help. She tried to calm him as he was still in pain. She said in a soft voice, "I'm here. I will help you." Her words were an attempt to ease his suffering, even though she did not fully understand what was happening. "Will you really?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Do you know that your blood is the antidote that can release me from the torment I have suffered for 100 years? Elia's mouth fell open. 100 years? She looked at the young man, who was groaning in pain, her eyes widening with astonishment. 100 years? She repeated, trying to process what she had heard. He seemed to be in his 20s. The young man nodded. "Yes, I am Prince William. I have been trapped in the form of a dragon for over 100 years. It is an ancient curse that can only be broken by your legendary blood. Your blood is the antidote that can free me from this suffering." Prince William spoke with a tone filled with both despair and hope. "I need your blood to free myself from this perpetual torment and to regain my life as a human. I have lived all these years in a hell of pain and darkness." The prince's words filled the room with anguish, and Elia was torn between compassion and fear. She did not know exactly how to act, but she felt that her fate might be increasingly tied to this young man. She wondered how to make a decision that balanced saving him and protecting herself. The prince shouted angrily, "Will you help me?" His voice was terrifying, but it carried a hidden plea. Elia was frightened, but her courage pushed her to respond, "Yes, I will." "But how? Will you kill me to take my blood?" Prince William shook his head and said, "No, I will not kill you. I just need a few drops of your blood every day for a month. That will be enough to free me from the painful curse." Elia breathed a sigh of relief, but the prince added seriously, "But there is a condition." She asked, "What is it?" The prince replied, "You must love me. Your blood must be infused with feelings of love. Your blood alone is not enough. I also need sincere emotions." Prince William's words were shocking. Elia felt confusion and anxiety, and inside her was a struggle between her desire to help and the challenge he presented. Elia needed to think about it. Love is not something that can be forced, but she had to decide if she would embark on this unexpected adventure and accept the challenge before her. The prince said firmly, "From tonight, you are my wife, whether you love me or not. You are now mine, and I will wait for the day you will love me and wash my curse with your blood, fragrant with the scent of love." He held her tightly, possessing her as if she had no choice, as if she were his property. He was filled with unwavering determination. Elia felt the heat of his body and his strong grip, which made her deeply anxious. She realized she had entered into a commitment she hadn't anticipated and was facing an unexpected fate. The handsome prince whispered as she was in his arms, "From now on, you will be a part of my life. You are my destiny, and I will fight all the magic in the world to have you with your heart, body, and soul." Elia's heart raced as she tried to adjust to the new situation, feeling conflicted emotions. She hoped to find a way to face this challenge and make love grow within her, despite everything. Days passed by, and Ilya kept seeing the ferocious dragon and the charming young man. She experienced fear and felt safe. She wrestled with love and hatred in the arms of a possessive husband who had made her his wife against her will. Every day, she faced the fierce dragon and at the same time, the handsome young man who kept appearing with his captivating looks, making her live a deep inner struggle. The moments she spent in the prince's arms were marked by emotional turmoil. Sometimes he appeared as a dream of beauty and tenderness, and at other times, he transformed into a fierce, terrifying dragon. Her life in the palace swayed between these contrasting dimensions, making her question her fate. Can I really love this man? This question plagued her with bitterness. At the same time, she found moments of safety and comfort brought by his calm persona as the young man. As time passed, she began to feel some changes gradually. Although she couldn't ignore her previous feelings, the kind actions and care the young man showed her started to soften the intensity of her hatred. She realized that he wasn't just a monster, but a person with long-standing suffering, who needed her love to free himself from the curse of generations. Ilya hoped for the day when she would discover her true feelings and find an inner strength that would allow her to overcome these emotional challenges, transforming the forced relationship into something deeper and more genuine. The night was gloomy, and Prince William was in excruciating pain from the horrific transformation. His body was tearing apart as if sharp knives were cutting every part of it. In those moments, a dark, terrifying void opened in the emptiness, pulling Ilya towards it. She tried to break free, but the void was strong, and Prince William was in his weakest state. His pain was twofold: physical pain from the transformation and emotional pain from seeing his beloved being drawn into the darkness. Before the transformation ended, Ilya disappeared into the void, and Prince William knew exactly what that meant. The void was a gateway to the world of magic and darkness, ruled by the witch who cursed him when he refused her love 100 years ago. Prince William cried out in pain and despair, "Old man, help me!" The wise old man arrived quickly, his face showing signs of worry and fear. He said to the prince, "Since the witch has kidnapped her, it means that Elia has started to love you. This is dangerous for the wicked witch because it means she might lose her power over you." The prince exclaimed, "What should I do? How can I get Elia back?" The wise old man replied, "There is only one solution. You must go to the witch yourself and face her. I will give you what you need to confront her. Take this stone. It is the only heaven stone on earth, and it can protect you from the witch's cursed shadows." Here is a map of the magical world. It will show you the location of the main gate, and from there you will find your way to her dark cave, as dark as her black heart." The old man extended the stone and map to the prince, who took them with trembling hands. He was determined to save Elia, knowing that this journey would be full of dangers. But he was ready to face anything to save his love and free himself from the curse of the witch. Prince William entered the dark realm of magic and faced the imposing gate. As he stepped onto the threshold, an evil laugh echoed everywhere, letting him know the witch was watching him through her crystal ball. In an instant, he transformed from a dragon into his handsome young self against his will, as if the area had drained all manifestations of his power. He continued his path until he reached the cave, where he heard the witch's evil laugh reverberating. "Welcome to your home, runaway beloved. Finally, you come to me on your own." Prince William shouted angrily. "I didn't come for you, but for Elia. Even if cursed forever, I will not be yours. Where is Elia? What have you done to her?" Suddenly, he heard Elia's voice coming from the ceiling. He looked up and saw a wooden cage hanging above a burning furnace, with a rope slowly being burned by a candle. The fear and panic in Elia's eyes were clear, tearing his heart with deep pain. Despite all he had endured, Prince William discovered that he loved Elia more than anything in the world. Her safety and happiness were more important than freeing himself from the curse. Gripping with a spirit of determination, he shouted at the top of his lungs, "I will do anything to save her. Even if I am never freed from my curse, I will be here for her." He then began searching for a way to save Elia from the cage, determined to confront the witch at any cost. Prince William listened to the witch's voice filling the cave, his heart clenched with pain and fear for Elia. The witch added coldly, "If you want to save Elia, you must marry me. That is the only condition to free her from her cage." The prince froze for a moment, unbelieving of what he heard. He said bitterly, "Why are you asking that? Why do you want to marry me?" The witch laughed wickedly, "Because I've loved you for a long time, and you rejected my love. Now, after all that has happened, I want you to be mine. This marriage will free you from my curse and save Elia from her torment. Will you accept this condition, or will you lose your beloved forever?" Prince William was torn between his heart and his mind. All he wanted was to save Elia. His eyes looked at the cage where Elia, who gazed at him with worry and love, was imprisoned. With each passing second, the fire approached the rope holding the cage, increasing the pressure on him. After a moment of silence, the prince said with resolve, "I will marry you, but you must meet the condition. When I am married to you, Elia must be in her village. Do this, and I will marry you. I will do anything to save her. I will not fail you." The witch took a deep breath and said with a sly smile, "Agreed. We will celebrate our marriage now. But remember, after the wedding, your freedom will be bound, and I will only release her once your life with me has begun." Prince William turned towards Elia, giving her a look filled with sorrow and determination. The witch began her mysterious marriage rites, while the young man knew that this sacrifice was his last hope to save his beloved. In a moment of madness, the witch let out a sinister laugh as she mixed her blood with the young man's, declaring them married forever. With the joining of their blood, Elia vanished suddenly from the cage, as if she had never been there. Prince William screamed in panic, "Where is Elia? What have you done with her?" The witch replied coldly and wickedly, "Calm down. I have kept my promise and returned her to her old father. She is now safe. But you will stay here with me forever. Our fates are now intertwined with our blood, and you cannot leave this place." The prince, who was gazing in shock at the place where Elia had been, felt a deep bitterness. The witch said in a malicious tone, "You are now part of the magical world and have become mine. There will be no escape or release. But do not worry. I will make sure you adapt to your new life here. Do not forget, I have loved you for 100 years. At that moment, the prince felt despair, but he was relieved that Elia had returned to her home, especially since the witch showed him an image of her hugging her father in her magical crystal. Elia decided to have the courage to seek a way to save her husband from the clutches of the wicked witch. She had no choice but to seek the help of the wise old woman, knowing she might be the only one able to guide her to the solution. Elia arrived at the wise old woman's cottage deep in the forest, with eyes full of determination and hope. When she entered the cottage, she found the old woman in her usual spot, surrounded by ancient books and potions. Elia said with a plea in her voice, "Ma'am, I need your help. The wicked witch has abducted my husband, and now he is trapped in her palace. I need to know how to reach the dragon palace or find someone who can help me free him." The old woman eyed her carefully. "I will send you to the sorcerer who used to choose girls. He might be able to help you." The wise old woman directed Elia to the sorcerer who used to select girls in the village. Elia arrived at the sorcerer's house and clearly explained her situation to him. The sorcerer said, "I will help you reach the dragon palace, but you need to be cautious. The palace is full of secrets and challenges, and you will need all your strength and wisdom to overcome them. I will guide you to a secret way to get there." The sorcerer gave Elia a magical map and a special potion, explaining to her how to use them to reach the dragon palace. The map contained magical symbols and secrets that could help her navigate the obstacles she would face. Elia thanked him gratefully. "I will do everything I can to save my husband. I will be cautious and use everything I have learned to reach the dragon palace." Elia headed towards the dragon's castle, carrying the map and the magical potion. She was determined to find a way to free her husband and restore her normal life, no matter the challenges she might face along the way. As Elia entered the dragon's castle, which had once terrified her, it now became a place where she must find hope to save her husband. Her heart felt both anxious and hopeful as she stepped inside, resolute in her mission to liberate her husband from the grip of the wicked sorceress. Upon entering, she saw the wise old man. She approached him and clearly explained her situation. The old man looked deeply into her eyes and said, "I completely understand what you are going through, and I know that things will be difficult. But you have taken a brave step by coming here. I will help you reach the sorceress's castle. There is a secret path known only to a few, and I will give you the necessary keys." He handed Elia a new map, equipped with magical symbols designed to breach the sorceress's castle, and gave her a piece of glowing crystal that would guide her in the dark and help her navigate through magical traps. The old man explained how to use these tools. He said, "The crystal map will guide you to the castle's gate, but you must be cautious, for the sorceress will do everything in her power to obstruct your path. You must be strong and brave." Elia replied with determination, "I will do everything I can to save my husband. I won't let anything stop me." Elia prepared herself and began her journey towards the sorceress's castle gate, carrying the map and the crystal, determined to face any challenges that lay ahead and reclaim her husband from the clutches of the wicked sorceress. Her eyes were filled with resolve and hope as she ventured into the unknown, committed to saving the love of her life at any cost. With each step Elia took towards the gate of the sorceress's castle, her blood glowed increasingly, radiating with pure love directed against the darkness. The brilliance in her veins was born from her defiance and sacrifice, qualifying her to confront the sorceress's curse. And she knew that the antidote for her husband was now ready. She reached the castle gate, where waves of thick darkness loomed around her, yet she was determined to enter the witch's realm. She used the crystal given to her by the old woman, which glowed brightly to carve a path through the darkness, revealing the magical traps that awaited her. As she approached the eerie castle that was the witch's lair, she felt a dark power coursing everywhere. But the brilliance of her blood granted her strength and resilience, making her feel that the love she carried in her heart could overcome any obstacle. She arrived at the throne room where the devilish witch sat, surrounded by dark specters. The witch looked at Elia with eyes filled with jealousy and malice, while Elia, despite her terror, was determined to save her husband. The witch shot an arrow at Elia, striking her hand and wounding her, yet she advanced with strength and resolve. Elia shouted, "The dark magic will not defeat me. I have come to free my husband, and you will pay for what you have done." The witch replied with a devilish grin, "Your idea of rescue is futile, for there is nothing you can do. His blood is bound to mine, and he is now part of my world forever. This bond is a spell that no creature can break." When Elia saw her husband under the spell, trembling submissively at the feet of the witch, she knew that a powerful enchantment had been cast upon him. The witch's spell had turned Prince William into a puppet, obeying her commands without hesitation. As Prince William lifted Elia off the ground and tightened his grip around her neck, Elia felt pain and fear. She looked at her hands, which were dripping with blood from the blow she had received from the witch. Quickly and devotedly, she took those drops and directed them toward her husband. In the moment the blood touched the prince's face, a strong shock occurred. He jolted as if awakening from a deep slumber. His eyes were filled with terror and shock as he found himself trying to strangle his beloved, completely unaware of how he had ended up in this situation. The prince cried out in concern, "What is happening? How did I get here?" as he struggled to regain his consciousness and understand what he had done. Elia replied with a voice filled with pain and love, "You are under the witch's spell. I have been searching for a way to save you. You must find strength within yourself to fight this magic." Despite being in a state of confusion and weakness, Prince William was gradually able to resist the spell's influence. He slowly stepped back, kneeling as he tried to rid himself of the threat posed by the witch's enchantment. In that moment, the witch advanced towards Elia, furious that her plan was beginning to fail. She tried to use her power to cast the spell on the prince once more, but Elia was ready. She used her radiant blood to nullify the witch's spell, realizing that just a single drop of her blood could protect her husband from any magic. Thus, the witch's spells failed against the powerful energy of love mixed with Elia's devoted and loving blood. With the witch's defeat, Prince William regained full consciousness and apologized to Elia for the pain he had caused. He recognized the courage and dedication she had shown in trying to save him, and they became more connected than ever. In a moment of overwhelming victory, the witch evaporated into the air, pained by the backlash of her failed spell. This was the punishment imposed by magical forces on any sorcerer who failed to execute their incantation. Failure led to a deadly reaction that killed the sorcerer instantly. With the witch's disappearance, Elia finally found herself free from her evil. As she rested her head in her husband's lap, she felt indescribable happiness and comfort. She looked into his eyes and smiled, her eyes filled with love and devotion. She took a deep breath and whispered tenderly, "I love you, and I am ready to do anything for you." Prince William, who had regained full consciousness, felt comforted and grateful to be beside Elia, alongside her love and loyalty. He now realized that what they had been through had made their relationship stronger and deeper, and they were ready for a new beginning together, away from the darkness and evil they had suffered. He took her in his arms and replied with a voice full of emotion, "I love you more than anything. Thanks to your courage and dedication, you have given me my life back and restored my hope. We will build our life together, living every moment with love and happiness." When Prince William and Elia returned to the palace, the wise old man was waiting for them, ready to help them use the antidote that would heal the young man from the spell cast by the witch. However, the old man revealed that the antidote would break the spell and free the prince from the curse of immortality, but it would make him an ordinary human, living a natural life like any other human who would become mortal. His suffering and torment from the curse had been prolonged, and this was the only price for freedom. Prince William faced this decision with courage, determined to live the rest of his life happily with Elia, who was the light that illuminated his dark and painful life. He decided to embrace the new life, no matter how short, with his beloved who brought him joy and hope. Prince William took the antidote and used it under the wise old man's supervision. After the healing process, the prince lived as an ordinary human, with all his experiences and emotions. However, he did not regret his choice, for he had found true happiness in Elia's love. Surrounded by love and respect, their story became a symbol of hope and courage in the village, inspiring everyone with their tale. The village's peace continued to flourish, and they lived a long life filled with peace and love.